Here on the Business Brain Podcast, we'll improve the thinking skills that are getting in your way of doing what you want to do so you can work smarter, move faster, and grow your business with ease. Jason owned a sound system company that would make sure you have the absolute best sound for your event. Clients would literally feel a weight go off their shoulders when they would hire Jason, as they knew he would take care of it all. But one thing that kept on getting in the way was how often Jason would jump from sentence to sentence without finishing the first one. This caused misunderstandings and general confusion, as not everyone was able to keep up with him. By going deep and understanding what was really going on here, we were able to solve the root problem. Jason was able to have better conversations with his clients, employees, and loved ones. He understood them, they understood him, and it saved a ton of mental headache. If you're experiencing something similar, I'm here to tell you, you do not have to struggle forever. In this episode 505 of the Business Brain Podcast, I'm going to share with you the exact steps of what you can do to have your own transformation. But first, your weak thinking skills are costing you money. How much, you ask? I'll tell you exactly how much. Head over to lifefixuniversity.com/calculator, and in less than 3 minutes, you'll see exactly what your weak thinking skills are costing you. That's lifefixuniversity.com/calculator. While you are doing any task, you, without even realizing it, are using your 28 thinking skills. When the thinking skills you need to use are strong, doing the task happens easily. If the thinking skills you need to use is weak, doing the task will be a challenge. The struggle that Jason had came from a weak thinking skill of holding 2 or more pieces of information. Just saying, take the time to finish your sentences doesn't help, as there is a reason why this is happening. And I wanted to understand what was really going on here with Jason. Through questioning, we're able to figure out the reason as to why Jason was jumping from sentence to sentence. And it was because he was often worried that he might forget the rest of what he wanted to say. So he started one sentence, and as soon as he said enough of the idea, he quickly jumped to the next sentence so he won't forget it all. As you can imagine, this caused a lot of confusion and miscommunication. In order to remember a few pieces of information that you wanted to share, you need to use the thinking skill of holding 2 or more pieces of information at once. You need to remember the pieces of information that you're saying right now and the pieces of information that you want to say sentences coming up. Many people with ADHD really struggle with this thinking skill, but you do not have to stay with this forever. I once heard someone describe it as a shelf being too small. The moment you try putting on another piece of information on the shelf, what was on the shelf before gets knocked off. To help Jason get better holding multiple pieces of information at once, I had Jason practice that exact skill of holding multiple pieces of information at once in the session. So instead of just writing out the answers to the work that we were doing, he first would have to think of all the answers and remember them. And then only after he has them all in his head, be able to go and write it out. In the beginning, it meant sometimes we'd have to do parts a few times over, as he would forget the answer. But over time, it developed his thinking skill of holding multiple pieces of information at once, and it became easier. To get additional practice with this, I had Jason give himself 3 things to do every time he pulled into his driveway. This meant before going to this house, he needed to think of 3 things he was going to do as soon as he walked in without writing it down. Then when he came to the house, he had to stay focused on doing those 3 things. They didn't need to be big things. He needed to remember what they were and do them without getting distracted. It could be something like making a coffee, unpacking the grocery bag, feeding the dogs, or responding to a test. After a week of doing this, Jason came back to session and said, "I'm tired. I don't want to try to remember anymore." And while the work is not always fun, it does get results. Others in the Optimize Your ADHD Brain cohort nodded their head and began sharing their stories of it being really tiring. They all said the same thing. Don't give up, because it is worth it. At the moment where you're feeling really tired and you want to give up, that is the moment that you need to persevere and continue this practicing, because this is you building those muscles that you haven't used before. And you're creating the possibility, you're building the skills so that way you now have those mental muscles. So if you're finding yourself getting tired out by improving your thinking skills, know that it is normal, as you are using parts of your brain you never used before. By sticking it through, it will become easier. And before you know it, your brain will be able to do it without you even thinking about it. The reason why Jason kept on jumping from sentence to sentence was because he was scared he was going to forget what he wanted to say. By improving his ability to hold a few pieces of information at once, he was able to keep track of the thoughts he wanted to say and have a much easier time communicating in a way that the people around him would understand. Your challenge this week is to give yourself 3 things to do every time you enter your house. Don't write these 3 things down. You've got to remember them and do them without getting distracted. When you find it easy to remember the 3, then bump it up to 4 and bump it up to 5 and see how many you can go without writing them down. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode. That's all for this episode of the Business Brain Podcast. If you enjoyed it, send it to a friend who secretly wants stronger thinking skills too, so together you can grow your businesses with peak brain performance.